So in this fifth video in the Scorpion walk tutorial, we want to animate the tail. We've got everything working pretty well, but you can see that the tail is still very, very stiff. There's almost no motion here at all. In fact, there is none. So what we want to do is go ahead and select one of these joints, one of these control curves, and that's the spine 2 control. And if I hit E on my keyboard, I get the rotation button. And what I'm going to do is set a keyframe at frame 1. And what I want to do is for the as the Scorpion goes down, and remember it's going down at frame 5, up at frame 9, down at 13, and up at 17. I want the tail to do the opposite. So when the body goes down, I want that tail to rotate up. And when the body goes up, I want that tail to rotate down. Body goes down, tail rotate up. This is basic opposing action. Body up, tail down. Now I'm going to hit A, see what I've done, and we can see the rotate Z curve going on there. So I'm going to select all of these curves, turn on my pre-infinity cycle, curves post-infinity cycle. Under view, I need infinity curves turned on, and I've now got my infinity curves. If I hit the flatten tangents button, I'll get a much smoother curve like that. So if I press play, we can see that we're beginning to get some flexibility in there. It's not very nice yet, but it will get better. I'm just going to have a look at that Control Z curve. Now you can see that it's slightly different at 17 and frame 1. So I'm going to take 17, middle mouse drag that to frame 1 and hit S. Now it's the same. And we want this to be more or less the same throughout. A nice smooth spline curve, just like we had in sine curve, I should say, just like we had in in mathematics at school. Not that I can remember very much of that. And I think we're just going to adjust this down a little bit so that it's not too much. And I think I might also just shift it a couple of frames to the left, just so it's slightly off center, just so the timing is slightly off. And that gives it a slightly nicer feeling. You can always slide these curves to create offsets. And now that we've done that, I'm going to select that. I'm going to go to Edit, Copy, and now I'm going to go to the next joint. This one here, this next one down, that's spine 3. Again, I'm going to go to frame 1, hit S on my keyboard, and now I'm going to go to Rotate Z, and I'm just going to paste this curve. Edit, Paste. And let's go ahead and turn on our curves, pre-infinity cycle, curves, post-infinity cycle. And now let's see what we've done. Okay, so now we're getting a bit more flexibility. That's starting to look a little nicer. And let's offset that curve as well. 1, 2. Let's see what that does. Nicer. Okay, so we're now starting to get a sense of flexibility here. And we can then go and paste that one last time to that curve there. So I'll go ahead to frame 1, hit S, select it, edit, paste, select that curve, turn on my infinity curves, curves, pre-infinity cycle, curves, post-infinity cycle. And let's see what that looks like. Okay, it's actually starting to look pretty decent now. And let's see if I try 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's move that 4 frames over. Yeah, okay. So that's starting to look pretty good. And I like that. I think that's working okay. So I'm actually it looks like we've got some more curves going on there that I might not have intended. Looks like we've got some side-to-side curves as well. Whoops, don't want the expression editor. Okay, so I've pasted a lot of curves that I probably didn't need. I'm actually just going to go ahead and delete those. We only wanted curves in the oh, I think I'm going to have to delete Z that out. What have I done there? Okay, well, we've got some curves we haven't intended, but I'm not going to worry too much about them now. I could always go and clean that up later on. The point is we're getting flexibility, which is what we want. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and I'm going to save that as version 7. I know I've already got a version 7, but I want to replace it. This is actually an earlier version that where there was a failed recording, so I've had to do it over. There's technical problems associated with Camtasia. always technical problems. One of the most frustrating things about learning Maya is the endless technical difficulties that one encounters. So now we've got a bit of up and down motion going on, but what we want now is, I think, a bit of side to side. We've got some side to side motion in the head, but almost nothing in the abdomen. So what I want to do is actually zoom in on the head control, hit spacebar so we can check that side to side curve, that rotate Y curve, and I'm going to take that curve, copy it, and I'm going to paste that onto this curve here. Now we've already got some motion on this tail, but we've got nothing in the y-axis, which is going to take the tail like that. So I'm going to go ahead and delete the keyframes we've got there, and then at frame 1 go ahead and edit, paste that curve. And what that should do now is, now the extreme, what's happening here, so the head is pointing to screen right at frame 1, and then at frame 9 the head is pointing to screen left. So we want the tail to do that as well. So actually I'm going to have to move this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there we go. And I also want it to cross the, I want that curve to cross the central line. I want it to be equal sides of 0. Okay, so now we're starting to get something a little bit more interesting. And I might actually just make the distance on the curve a little bit bigger as well. Okay, so now you can see we're getting some side to side motion, which is overall more interesting. I might just scale it back a tiny bit. Just seems a little bit too much. Okay. And we can go ahead and copy that curve, edit, copy, and paste it onto the next one, this one here. And again, we can go to the rotate Y curve, which should have nothing on it. Yeah, and go edit, paste, hit A, curves pre-infinity cycle, curves post-infinity cycle, and we now should have quite a bit of flexibility going on here, except we're now, the thing is now pointing slightly off center, so if I move that to the middle like that, we should have it a bit more centered. Oops. Certain amount of tweaking that goes on with this stuff. Okay, so I'm reasonably happy with that. I'm at this point, I think I'm going to declare victory on the tail. Let's just see if I shift that a little bit, see if that's any better. Something slightly, there's something slightly imbalanced in it. Feels like it has a slight limp, and I'm not entirely sure why. I think it's something to do with the, maybe something to do with this control curve up here. Let me have a look at that one. Just going to move all of these controls so that they're over the main curve. Well, that's not too bad. I'm reasonably happy with that. It's nice and flexible, and you could almost, you could almost add the sounds of, if you wanted to make this interesting, you could add some audio to this and have the sounds of some machinery. Like a garbage truck moving along, or maybe even a tank, because the sound of kind of grinding metal. If you wanted to turn this thing into a huge monster, kind of wandering down the street, causing mayhem and general destruction. Now I'm going to save that there and declare victory. Save over version 8, which I saved earlier on, and I think in the next video what we'll do is import a set and perhaps bake out our curves and maybe even add a little performance at the end.